Black Knife is one of the big standout songs of Deltarune's new soundtrack. There's no denying that it has an incredibly unique sound compared to the rest of the OST, and today I'd like to analyze both how and why Toby Fox made this song sound the way it does. We're going to be breaking this song down from both a composition perspective and a production perspective, by which I'm referring to the instrument choices and the effects on those instruments. For the production side of things, I'll be citing specific details from the Deltarune sample sheet created by Storm, which is linked in the description below. This is a community-compiled spreadsheet documenting the instruments and effects used in Toby Fox's soundtracks, so as always, this information is all publicly available. I'm just here to analyze and give my thoughts on it. So let's talk about Black Knife and see how much of the song I can include in the video without upsetting YouTube's copyright system. Right off the bat, we're hit with the iconic drum beats that immediately catches your attention just by how different it sounds from anything else in the Deltarune soundtrack. It's accompanied by a bass line matching its rhythm with this chromatic rise every other bar that helps build this uneasy tension. The bass line is made up of 3 different MIDI guitar instruments from the Toho sound font with various levels of distortion on them. And while distortion on an electric guitar isn't anything crazy, Toby also put distortion on the drums. Despite how unique these drums sound, it's actually just the electronic drum kit from the SGM sound font. Normally when Toby has a unique sounding song, it's because he's using some obscure set of sound fonts, especially from old video games, like the Earthbound sound font for Megalovania's lead instrument. But SGM is just a general MIDI instrument library that's free and publicly available, so it's not that obscure at all, and even the distortion program he's using is just one that's built into FL Studio. I guess I should also mention that this entire song is pitched down by 4 semitones, and many of the instruments are also individually detuned. If you've ever messed with the pitch of an audio file, you know that it distorts the audio a bit, and even though Toby Fox often messes with the pitches of his songs, it definitely adds to the overall distortion of Black Knife. We also have these choir sections that are sort of wailing in the background. Obviously, the idea of wailing voices is already pretty unnerving, but these voices actually directly parallel the ones in the song The Chase. Except in Black Knife, they're going down in pitch rather than up, which is way more scary sounding. Fun fact, according to the metadata of Black Knife's song file, this song was finalized way back in 2018, which is the year that Chapter 1 came out. So there's a good chance that The Chase and Black Knife were created right alongside each other. And of course, as we'll see, The Chase is essentially just a toned-down version of Black Knife. Anyways, back to the choir. The slow, smooth descension down from one note to the next means that not only are we hitting all the notes in between, which may be potentially out of key, but also all the notes that don't even exist on a piano, which you could call microtones, or basically the notes in between the piano keys. The delay and reverb on the choir means that all of these discordant notes can echo out in the mix and clash with both each other and the rest of the song, adding to the overall dissonance of the track, which we'll talk about later. The harshness of both the instruments and the notes they're playing can be a bit overwhelming and might not be everybody's taste, but it's important to account for the context of the moment when the song plays in the story. We have this fake-out happy ending, which is abruptly interrupted by this mysterious alien-like abstract creature of darkness who just outright kills Tenna and challenges us to a battle out of nowhere. The moment the song starts, we are told that this is the Roaring Night, the ominous antagonist that's been haunting the narrative for the past 3 chapters that we definitely didn't expect to meet so early in the story, let alone fight against. The Night is unlike anything we've encountered before, and is overwhelmingly powerful in what is essentially an unwinnable fight. When you think about it, Black Knife perfectly encapsulates this moment. The track itself is overwhelmingly distorted, it's unlike any song we've heard before in the game and kinda comes out of nowhere, and the harsh, dissonant sound is basically the musical embodiment of the Roaring Knight's dark presence. Now, I know I spent a lot of time just on the introduction of this song, but guess what? The intro section goes on for almost 30 seconds, and this song isn't even 2 minutes long in total. The intro kinda drags on. And I think the construction of this song was very intentional. Most people will never get past the intro of the song because they'll immediately die to the knight's first attacks. Getting to hear the actual melodic content of Black Knife is almost a reward for surviving the fight for so long. This isn't actually an unprecedented technique. The song You Will Know Our Names from Xenoblade Chronicles plays when you're fighting some of the tougher enemies in the game. It has a harsh, intense metal intro that goes on for a while, and most people will lose the battle before the intro even ends. But if you can endure these fights for long enough, you get to hear the rest of the song, which eventually shifts into a more hopeful and heroic anime rock ballad. Alright, I'll quit yapping about the introduction. I don't even know what I'm going to put on the screen for this long. The gameplay probably already beat the Roaring Knight. You want some Subway Surfers? Alright, the main melody is the same as the chase and the door, and people actually predicted that this motif would be used for the knight because it is incredibly similar to the melody of an old Toby Fox song titled Nightmare Night. The melody isn't anything crazy, but the instrument it's being played on, as far as I can tell as of this video's recording, is a synth of unknown origin, likely just a custom synth patch. We tend to associate these types of synth sounds with aliens and sci-fi, which perfectly captures the vibe of this weird, abstract night creature. Now, beneath the synth, we get some actual chords in the background, which have some dissonant notes. To explain it as simply as possible, dissonance is when the sound waves of notes clash with each other. For example, playing a note and its sharp together typically sounds pretty harsh. And psychologically, it makes us expect movement and typically resolution to a more consonant interval. The push and pull of dissonance and consonance helps to keep things interesting by playing on our expectations. In Black Knife, Toby Fox uses a lot of dissonance to create a near constant sense of tension that our ears are begging to be resolved, which injects this sort of emotion in the listener that parallels how the characters in Deltarune must feel facing off against the knight. Combine that with the actual player's experience of having to dodge all these really tough attacks, and you get this perfect storm of tension and chaos that, ironically, comes about with all of these factors working well together. The next section introduces a new melody played on this screechy sounding synth. This melody is actually also present in the chase, although much less intense. This kinda sounds like an old video game choir sound font being played at a high pitch, which is what I thought it was at first, but it's actually just a saw wave. Nothing too crazy. Saw waves can sound a lot harsher at higher pitches because you can more clearly hear the intensity of their higher frequency. I just made that up, but I think it's true, right? So these high notes, alongside the sliding between some of them, gives it the vibe of a screeching voice. You're also getting these up and down contours of the notes, kinda like a roller coaster as the notes rise and fall. It's like Toby Fox is making all the right choices to inject as much tension into the music as possible. This is kind of similar to old school Pokemon battle music, which Toby Fox has cited as an inspiration for one of his other songs in the past, Battle Zero Lab from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This is the final boss theme of those games and he composed it, and if you actually listen to the song, it has very similar vibes to Black Knife. I even made a cover of Zero Lab in the style of Black Knife here on this channel. Now it seems like things are only getting more tense, but we're about to come up on one of the more interesting parts of this song, the emotional melody. We have a more consonant melody. The chords and the bass line have shifted pretty significantly from where they've been most of the song, which helps to resolve all that tension they've been building up earlier. The chaotic and distorted drums have been stripped away as well, allowing the listener to breathe a little bit before the end of the song. This section injects a little bit of hope into this otherwise very dark piece of music. And like I mentioned earlier, you're not typically going to hear this part of the song unless you've lasted quite a while in the battle. Similarly, when the battle goes on long enough, Susie begins a hopeful, determined monologue even in the face of a seemingly insurmountable threat. As the old man in Chapter 4 would say, one of her greatest powers is hope. Also in the background of this section, we have these twinkling arpeggios faintly echoing in the mix. We associate twinkling sounding instruments with stars for some reason, even though stars don't really sound like that. But yeah, psychologically, we think of these instruments as sounding like stars, which is weird when you think about it too much. But it just so happens that the knight uses star-type attacks and completely rips off PK Starstorm from the Mother series. So there's that connection being made in the music. Alright. I know, we're gonna address the allegations, which is that this melody is secretly supposed to be Lost Girl. Now look, I know the knight has antlers and is probably almost certainly just death, but the fact that people were able to hear this connection is really interesting, especially considering it's kind of a stretch. In my video breaking down Deltarune Chapter 3's soundtrack with terrible mic quality, I compared the notes of the Lost Girl motif to the notes of this melody, and they actually do line up just a little bit. This part of the song. And then if we paste Lost Girl over the top of it and line it up like this, you can see it's practically hitting the same notes starting from right here. It's hitting this entire run, literally just with these two notes swapped, right? Here's what it sounds when they're played together. Now here's the thing. Yes, a whopping 5 of the notes line up with Lost Girl if you swap 2 of them around. And I wouldn't put it past Toby Leitmotif Fox himself to sneak the Lost Girl motif in there. But I do feel the need to point out that this is just an iteration on the main Black Knife motif. If you know anything about the process of iterating on motifs to create melodies and stuff, then you can clearly see the connection in the rhythm and contour here. And if that sounds like complete gibberish to you, I'm sorry, but you can go watch my video where I explain how Toby Fox writes melodies and it makes sense. The point is that from a composition standpoint, this section isn't introducing a completely new musical idea to the song, it's just elaborating on the song's main motif in a different way. Now, I can't deny that there are those 5 notes that it has in common with the Lost Girl motif. Again, you have to switch 2 of them around, but it's still very possible that Toby Fox is intentionally hiding that reference in there. But it's more of a stretch than what we can say with absolute certainty, which is that this section is primarily elaborating on the main Black Knife motif. Toby, you already put antlers on the knight's helmet. If you're gonna put Lost Girl in the song, just actually put it in the song. It's not like you were being subtle to begin with, okay? You could replace this melody with just a voice saying, "My name is December Holiday and I am the Roaring Knight," and people would still make video essays speculating that it's secretly Papyrus. Anyways, the melody eventually trails off with a slide note, injecting a little bit of dissonance back into the song before the drums kick back in and the lead synth from earlier takes over. And as the song concludes, we're still playing that more emotional melody, but with the warbling, alien-like synth, it becomes more and more erratic as we start injecting more slide notes into the melody. It feels like the melody itself is on the brink of falling apart and is calling out to us desperately, trying to hold itself together. This is the detail that I think makes the potential Lost Girl quote a little bit cooler if it's actually there. Overall, our brief reprieve of hope has now turned into what feels more like desperation, as all the chaos and tension of the rest of the song returns. I should also mention the call and response with the screeching saw wave from earlier, but I forgot to bring it up, and now the song is over. All in all, it's really cool how Toby Fox was able to fit all of these ideas and emotions into what is, on the surface, not a very complex song. It's only 2 minutes long, there's not a ton of counter melodies or harmonies or miscellaneous instrumentation. It's a pretty straightforward stack of chords, bass line, melody, and percussion. But it stands out from the rest of the soundtrack because of all of the intentional and creative choices Toby Fox made when composing this song. Again, the sample sheet I referenced for the video is linked in the description, so go check that out, please. I actually have a funny story where a person from Materia joined our community Discord server asking how I was able to find the information for some of my previous videos about the Deltarune soundtrack. Even though all my resources were linked in my descriptions, I guess they didn't see them, so I directed them to the Toby Fox FLP Sample Archive Discord server, which is where all of these community-created resources are compiled. Later, I was talking to them over DMs, and they said that they showed the spreadsheets to other people at Materia Editions, which, if you don't know, is the subsidiary of Materia that produces the licensed cheap music collections. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we've seen this before, we look at them all the time," which I thought was cool to hear. Anyways, even though all of this stuff was always linked in my descriptions when I use them, I just wanted to emphasize it in this video, evidently, so nobody misses it. You should go support the incredibly talented people who figure all these instruments and stuff out. It's really cool. Anyways, I think I've yapped enough for this week, so I'll see you all in the next one. I upload Undertale and Deltarune content every single week, so subscribe for that, and join our Discord server where we hold special little challenges that I turn into videos to further highlight the immense creativity and talent of this community. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you all in the next one.